Chapter 2. Saved on paper, orphaned in practice. Most believers never question the version of salvation they inherit. They accept it the way a child accepts the rules of a house they didn't build. They learn the language, memorize the verses, repeat the prayers, and try to live inside a structure that was handed to them long before they understood what any of it meant. And for a while it works, or at least it appears to. But beneath the surface, something quieter is happening, something almost no one talks about. A split begins to form. The mind says, I'm saved. The heart whispers, then why do I still feel alone? It is a quiet tragedy, and it is everywhere. You can see it in the eyes of people who know all the right answers, but carry a sadness they can't explain. You can hear it in the prayers of those who speak to God as if He is far away, even though they believe He is near you. You can feel it in the way people serve tirelessly, hoping their effort will finally make them feel wanted. They are saved on paper, but orphaned in practice. They belong to God in doctrine, but not in their own hearts. They know they are forgiven, but they do not feel chosen. They believe they are loved, but they do not feel desired. And so they live in a strange in-between. A life where the mind is convinced, but the heart remains untouched. A life where salvation is something they agree with, not something they experience. A life where they carry the name of Christ, but not the nearness of Him. This is the illusion that shapes so much of modern Christianity, not a false salvation, but a thin one, a salvation that informs the mind but never awakens the spirit. The salvation that teaches people how to behave but never teaches them how to belong. And the ache that rises from that illusion is not rebellion. It is not unbelief. It is not immaturity. It is the heart refusing to settle for information. It is the spirit remembering something the mind has forgotten. It is the quiet insistence that there must be more than this. Because deep down every believer knows, even if they cannot articulate it, that salvation was never meant to be a transaction. It was never meant to be a moment of prayer or doctrinal alignment. It was never meant to be a status you hold or a belief you defend. It was meant to be a union, a belonging, a homecoming. But when the church teaches salvation as an event, people learn to measure their faith by their own things. They measure it by certainty instead of intimacy, by correctness instead of connection, by performance instead of presence. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to live like spiritual orphans, forgiven but fatherless, redeemed but rootless, saved but still searching for a place to rest. The orphan way of living has many faces. Some try to earn what was already given. Some try to behave their way into belonging. Some hide their ache behind service. Some bury it under theology. Some drown it in distraction. Some silence it with shame, but the ache never goes away. Because the ache is not the problem. The ache is the evidence. It is the Spirit's witness pressing against the illusion. It is the heart saying, I was made for more than this. It is the memory of a belonging older than time. And once that ache is awakened, once the illusion cracks even slightly, the soul begins to recognize the truth it has always known. Salvation is not a belief to hold, but a love to return to. That is why the moment in the crowd mattered. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. It exposed the split I had lived with for years. The split most believers live with their entire lives. It revealed the distance between the salvation I had been taught and the belonging I had been created for. And in that revelation,
Something ancient stirred, something that had been waiting patiently beneath the surface of my faith. Something that had been calling to me long before I ever knew how to listen. It was the beginning of the return. The return to the truth that salvation is not the end of the story. It is the doorway back to the one who wanted me before I existed. And once you taste even a drop of that belonging, you can never go back to living as though the illusion were true.